Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. History was made today, 7 years in the making since OpTic were last in a World Championship Grand Final. Destiny awaited the green wall today. OpTic in front of their home crowd, the best venue, the best championship crowd that I've ever seen at a Call of Duty event. There was potentially only one conclusion to the action of today, but Subliners were never going to go down easy in the Grand Finals. What a performance from start to finish from OpTic Gaming this weekend. So many talking points today. The ring finally secured for Dashy after all of these attempts. Pred gets his first ring. This OpTic team securing themselves as a legacy in terms of being the second best OpTic team, I'd argue, of all time, behind none other than the Dynasty. What a weekend of Call of Duty we've had. So much to dive into. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. First of all, the Challenger side concluded today. That was won in the end by Arcitys team. It was a big Game 7 they eventually played. Arcitys, Paulex, Yuli and TwoReeAL, they take the win. Law Gaming win the Challengers World Championship. That's big for them going forward as well, of course. Cami and Awakening's team with Purge, and then of course Prolute, they fall just short in the end. This was kind of cool to see as well, with Scrappy there at the venue with Bella, and watching from the suite that the OpTic guys had available for them. There was also this going on today with the Tat saying the following: stop trying to steal the shine for the Call of Duty World Championship, because it was certainly shining today. And this is what I was hinting at earlier in the weekend. I'd heard back on Wednesday they had an orchestra planned for the final day to play the music on the walkouts and stuff, and I thought, wow, this is what it's like to be at a ReeaL Esports event. When you watch the Dota, the international, whatever it's called, when you watch the League of Legends World Championship, when you watch the big Counter-Strike majors, they put on a show. Big crowds, often central stage location like we had, and just some legendary stuff going on. The way that they had the wristbands as well today, like even yesterday or maybe the day before as well, they had them also just to, so the crowd is lighting up, the orchestra there, like this is what it's all about, baby. And I was just so excited to be there in person today. It was a real honor to be able to spend this weekend like at the setup we had. So thanks to OpTic and everyone that helped sort us out for the weekend, right? And look, it was an OpTic hosted World Championship. They were obviously always going to have the crowd in their favor, but which team played the best CoD this weekend? There was no denying it was the green wall, making the run from winners round 1 all the way to the grand finals and winning it without losing a series all along. There was talk as well today about what this meant in terms of which teams were going to be and which players were going to be in some of the conversations. For example, if HyDra won back-to-back World Championships, where would he sit in terms of top 10 players ever? He's got to be in that conversation immediately, right? 2 rings, back-to-back championships, best player for the team both years. HyDra would immediately be in there. But winning back-to-back championships as a player is so incredibly challenging to do. Clay's done it, Karma's done it, JCap's done it. Other than that, it's never happened, and it's, not happened since maybe next year there is an opportunity, right? And in the CDL era, there's been a different team one every year. Okay, Dallas Empire, maybe it's the same as OpTic Texas technically from an ownership point of view, but not really. Different at the time, very different teams, although Shotzzy was now part of both of those situations. A 2-time world champion Shotzzy, and a 2-time world champion now for Kenny. His resume speaks for itself after this tournament, but there was just so much good stuff happening on this championship Sunday. The fact that they had Clay here with all of his 3 rings, his Advanced Warfare ring, his, of course, Modern Warfare 2019 ring, and then his Black Ops 4 ring as well. This was just absolute fire. And then we had some of the guys waking up for Championship Sunday, right? Obviously, Sender made the statement last night, we ain't losing tomorrow. Well, we'll see about that, right? Dashy woke up. Of course, Kenny woke up as well, and he kind of hinted here that Bandana was going to be coming out here for Championship Sunday, as of course were the Championship Whites. This was phenomenal as well from CleanX and Shorstin, putting together this documentary on the old school players who won what was effectively the World Championship before it was the World Championship, right? When it was the National Championships pre-2013. And Doug obviously was getting involved in this, and basically all of those guys ended up getting rings for their victory, which I thought was just such a cool homage. And I think the CDL has actually taken some serious steps forward this weekend, not just in terms of the way the event was run, but also in terms of recognizing what came before, right? Like, this esport has been decades, a couple of decades in some sense in the making to get to this point where we've got an event of this caliber. And, I was obviously spending the weekend with the likes of Sasha, who was on the watch party for a large part of it. Obviously, thanks to him for coming on. And he was saying, like, looking at what this is today and what they went through, right? Like the tournaments that the likes of Priestahh played through to help build this esport up to what it is today. And it's great that the CDL was commemorating that, right? Like commemorating the old school players, the likes of Assassin and Sharp and, Stainville and all of these guys. And then obviously through the CWL era, even when they looked at OpTic Texas, they mentioned the fact that OpTic had only made one Champs Grand Final of 7 in the pre-CDL era. We haven't really heard the CDL refer to the pre-CDL much before, but it was cool to see them notice it because it's definitely important and relevant to the history of the esports. And of course, they've now made one Champs Grand Final in the last 5 years. And well, we know how that ended as of today. This was such a great moment, by the way, in the venue here when the OpTic boys were due to walk out. And I think we can actually see, I couldn't quite see, but just below where we were looking over the balcony, you could see behind the curtain to backstage. And I saw people like pointing and looking, and I was like, oh, they're pointing at OpTic, right? Like, what's the big deal? But then, of course, we quickly realized that it was actually the OpTic Dynasty. And I think I mentioned this, didn't I, in like yesterday's video, that I was like, well, Scump's here, Karma's here, Crim's here, and obviously Formal's here as well. So, is there something in that? Turns out there is. And I just thought this was such a great moment to see. And in some ways, it was maybe intended to be, or maybe it just turned out this way, as a bit of a passing of the torch in some ways. I've referred to this current OpTic Texas team before as the best team they've formed since the Dynasty. This, of course, the best ever team that OpTic have formed. But there was no doubt in my mind that this current OpTic Texas team in terms of potential was right there. We saw it back at Major 3. I don't know what's happened during the Major 4 qualifiers and during Major 4, but something clicked again going into this tournament. And the level they played CoD at this weekend was just what we saw on Sunday. They played like OpTic Texas, Major 3, Sunday in Toronto, but they played like that every single day. And today they weren't even making the mistakes they were early on in the tournament, right? This was the orchestra, by the way, playing like a version, like their version of the CDL music as the Dynasty walks out to play. And then obviously as they walk onto the sidelines, then it's the OpTic Texas team themselves that walk out. I mean, what a moment this was. The energy in the venue was unlike anything that I've heard, certainly at an esports event, and it was absolutely sensational. Pred versus Sib. This is one of the key storylines. Duo from the Seattle Surge days. How would they get on? And, Blaze's fit today as well was, everything was perfect today. In many ways, everything was absolutely perfect. And complete cinema. As we get this interest of the crowd, just such credit is belonging to the OpTic team that put this event together, the Esports Engine guys that obviously helped out with everything as well. The production was just absolutely epic. And apart from one replay on the Challengers Championship today, it was pretty much flawless in terms of execution and no technical delays and all this type of stuff. But OpTic get underway with a banger here. And honestly, OpTic have been bringing some crazy comebacks this weekend in their hardpoints that I thought, if they just don't go down 100, they're probably going to win. And that's basically what happens. They win the game 1. They take first spot in the finals. And I was like, early doors, let's see what happens here. Keeping an eye on Kismet, keeping an eye on HyDra if he turned around. Game 1, I noted that Dashy seems pretty nervous, right? And totally understandable, right? Dashy, the pressure was on him more than anybody today. This was his chance. He'd never made a Champs Grand Finals before, Dashy. Basically, since he came into the league, was the last time that OpTic won Champs, right? Back in 2017 was pretty much his first ever World Championship. Since then, he's had a top 3, but not even made the finals. And I'm sure that Dashy woke up today thinking, oh my God, this is it. This is time to cement the legacy. This is time to prove all the doubters wrong over the last several years, right? The people that have criticized Dashy, myself included at times, absolutely in certain instances, but I think that everything that Dashy's been through, the criticism getting dropped from his own team, obviously on a couple of different occasions, has built him into the player that he is today, and a player that can turn up to the championship Sunday, not even play that well map 1, but his teammates got him. And as soon as Dashy felt comfortable locked down into the series, then he was going to start taking over, and that's exactly what he did. My player to watch though today was Kenny, really, because I was convinced that Kenny was not going to turn up to Sunday and disappoint. This is what this guy does. There's certain players that have the mentality, and the majority of players in the league do not have a mentality that can win you a world championship. There's a couple of, Subliners are another team that does have this mentality, but the OpTic guys, in terms of resilience, in terms of players that I would want to have on my team in a world championship grand final, there's no doubt that many of these OpTic guys are there. Kenny is possibly chief of that list on this OpTic team. And, he just had a phenomenal series here, really, certainly early doors. This was a round, though, that Subliners just could not lose. 5-5. Kismet's just inside. Shotzzy gets spotted here, and Kismet is in an interesting position. What does he do? Does he chal? Does he not chal? He decides not to chal immediately. And then eventually he does decide, Kismet, to get off this little ledge, chals Shotzzy in the end. Shotzzy gets the kill on him. Like, it's kind of bad timing, but, you know, it's not a gunfight you want to lose. And somehow OpTic end up winning this round, and this was just crucial in the series. The great play from OpTic was that they probably knew that this wallbang was going to come through on B, which was, of course, popularized throughout the weekends. So they wrapped the bomb to A, got there just in time to plant, win the rounds. And at that point, it's looking like, wow, OpTic are up 2-0 already. However, Subliners are never going to go down that easy. They do bounce back. They win the Karachi control. This was definitely a competitive one, but in the end, Subliners just about got over the line. I was certainly hoping not to have at least a 5-0 today. But this is why we talk about resilience, right? OpTic picked up right back where they left off, dominating the ReeaL hardpoint. And this is when I knew the series was over. Like, there was no doubt in my mind after OpTic just completely blew the Subliners out of the park on this ReeaL hardpoint. And, you know, this was the energy. This was the map, wasn't it, that they won major 3 on when Pred and Shotzzy were going off. And to this point in the series, Shotzzy had a pretty slow series. He had a really bad map 3, Karachi control. But if there's one map that's going to get these guys warmed up and ready for a series, it's basically going to be this one, right? And, you know, Shotzzy and Pred came out flying here. The ARs did their job as well. And on the other side of the station, it's got to be said, Kismet again with another pretty rough series for him, all things considered. Skyz as well was last alive, like, you know, 50 million times in the search and destroy. Didn't really clutch much. Sib again played really well, I thought. But, like, the energy that OpTic were feeding off from the crowd, like, there definitely was a fifth man effect in play today. And you can call it, like, home advantage or whatever you want, but the reality is that any OpTic crowd in this moment would have been like this. I mean, Subliners have supporters, but I'm not on the same level that OpTic do, pretty much regardless of where this event had been held. So you can talk about home crowd advantage or whatever, but like, they still had to get the job done. There's still only 4 guys there in the server, but OpTic absolutely thrive on moments and crowds like this. And, you know, I talked about this earlier in the weekend, right? Like, when Shotzzy is making faces like this, like, I mean, look at his face here. There's just no way he's losing. There's no way he's gonna lose. And we saw the same thing with Pred. The crowd are coming up with some crazy chants, like Kenny as well. You know, he was laughing. The team was having a good time. And when you see Bandana Kenny on a championship Sunday laughing and having fun, you know that it's over, right? They went on to win the Invasion Search and Destroy again, just as they did yesterday, and they take it to an Invasion Control, a map that it looks like for some time that OpTic were probably going to lose, but they clutched up when it mattered. And this, I think, was when Dashy, after that game 5, when they were 1 round away or 1 map away, he probably knew that they'd kind of won at this point, and he could almost taste the glory. But it wasn't over yet, right? Subliners are not an easy team to beat. They won last year's World Championship for a reason, but going back-to-back is very hard for a reason, and they won Champs last year and made a change. They may have to think about it on the way that Kiz performed this weekend, as to, you know, last year they said, look, we had Priestahh, but we pack-a-punched. Is there an argument to be made there that Subliners should consider doing the same thing again? Certainly OpTic aren't going to make a change after this result, but what a way to close it out, right? Invasion Control, a map that was so tense down to the wire, but when it mattered, OpTic got the job done on the attacking rounds, and Shotzzy, Dashy, Kenny, Pred, JP, Karma, and probably Accuracy, they are your Call of Duty World Champions for 2024. This is a moment that I thought for some time may never arrive for the Green Wall, really. You know, for several years now, we've looked at the teams they've built and we've wondered, why can they not get the job done at the World Championship? And it seems like this year, the story was playing out again. I was convinced when Kenny joined this team that he was going to be the man to really take them to the next level. And I thought the karma from a coaching POV, that may well be true as well. But after they won Major 3, which I thought was kind of inevitable, they'd win an event, their fall off at Major 4 made me question whether it was going to be the same story again. And OpTic would turn up to Champs, they'd get top 3, they'd get top 4, and then they'd, you know, reminisce on a year that what could have been. But this year it was different. For whatever reason, this year it was different. And OpTic Tech says, are your 2024 Call of Duty World Champions. The storylines for this event could not have been better. I had a feeling after Friday, the way that things were going, especially after FaZe's loss, right, dropping down to losers, I was like, wow, this event, like everything at this event, is setting up to be potentially the greatest ever Call of Duty event. And I think that you can absolutely make the argument for that this weekend. 7 seasons, 46 career events, Dashy becomes a Call of Duty World Champion, right? The player that's been under the spotlight, so much criticism over the last few years, a player as well that, you know, pretty much joins the list of being the best player never to win the World Championship after Octane, and Kenny got the job done a couple of years ago. You know, it makes me reminisce a bit on the whole scump comments to Dashy on taking up the mantle and getting to the next level. And look, Dashy didn't have his greatest series in the grand finals here, but it didn't matter because he had his moments in it, and in the end, it was everybody else that turned up and delivered the results. HyDra, Sib, they played their best. Kiz had an okay series, to be honest. It was Skyz that kind of, at times let the side down, but Karma wins his 4th ring, right, now as a coach, which is an incredible storyline, right, to think about. 3 rings as a player, now 1 as a World Championship coach. The World Championship MVP as well goes to Shotzzy. Here he is, absolutely deserved, I thought, over the course of the weekends. He was their best player, and, just so many incredible storylines coming out of today. Here's Hex on the main stage. You can even make the argument now that Shotzzy might be the greatest ever controller FPS player ever, right, because he's won the Halo World Championship back in 2018. He's now won 2 Call of Duty World Championships, and to do it with this team, it was, I'm sure, a dream come true for absolutely everyone. So what a day. How many storylines are we going to have to talk about over the coming days? I cannot even begin to imagine. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. It was great to meet everyone this weekend. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.